Hi everyone, this is Sylvia Kuchena. Welcome to my channel. So today, big topic. We will talk about generational trauma and how generational trauma is impacting us in our adulthood. And what can we do to heal it? What does it mean, the generational trauma? It means when some of the family members don't heal their own trauma, they will pass their own behaviors, belief system, emotional state onto other generations. And this is how we can see a pattern in the family and through beliefs, different patterns of behaviors, and all of that comes back to the one person who happened to experience that traumatic event, and yet they won't heal it. They try to avoid it, maybe they try to suppress it, maybe they just try to pretend it never happened. Whatever they do, they completely are in the survival mode. They pretend like nothing happened. But without even knowing, based on that trauma, they already have experienced or created some belief system about men, about women, about life, about children, about career, about anything really. So this is why it's so important for us to look inside, because we think this is only us, we only have ourselves, and whatever happened in the past to our parents, to our grandparents, it don't really matter. I need to disappoint you here. It matters hugely. And you do have your mother, your father inside you. You have your grandparents inside you. You have your great grandparents inside you. So let's right now look at your mothers and what kind of mother, what kind of women they were. Were they available? Were they good listeners? Were they warm and welcoming? Were they kind? Were they always there for you? Did you feel like they're always constantly were giving? But what expectations did they have? What beliefs did they have about men? Did they feel comfortable in their womanhood? How about your fathers? What kind of fathers did you have? Were they good? Were they decent men? Were they warm? Did they talk about their emotions? What kind of beliefs did they have about men? This is really, really important, because when you will know the answers to what kind of past, what kind of pattern you have in your family, that will open a huge, massive door to your subconscious. Because in your subconsciousness, this is where all of that is actually being registered. You might not recall it, but you definitely are remembering what kind of trauma is in your family. Generational trauma is huge when it comes to our own personality, when it comes to our own healing. The more you deny it, the more wounded you will stay. Because you didn't come here with no family. You, even if you feel like you don't have a family, if you were adopted, that itself has a huge history. That itself has a huge information for yourself. So regardless of how you came to this world, you already have a story. You already have a part of you that was never spoken, but yet you know. As children, all what we want is to be loved, to be cared for, to feel like we are important. We want to feel like we belong somewhere. And when we have around us loads of adults who are wounded, without even them knowing that they are. We become to learn how to survive in this environment. We're disconnecting ourselves from our own self, we're disconnecting ourselves from emotions, we disconnect ourselves from them. All what matters is how to survive. How and what expectations are there for me that I have to meet for them to love me, for them to like me, for them to maybe make me feel somehow safe or visible. If that never happens, then we get into this state of, number one, blaming ourselves from all the bad that happened. So if a parent is angry at us, it's our fault. If a parent is not available emotionally, it's our fault. If mom is sad and she's crying, it's our fault. Because we could be better, maybe we could do more, if we acted differently, maybe dad wouldn't be so angry and mom wouldn't be so sad. With that mindset, majority of kids are starting to blame themselves, but also they stepping out of their childhood mode, and they try to be the fixers. They become the fixer for mom's emotions. They try to be the perfect child that the parent, mom or dad, needs, so they can somehow feel close to them. If they can't get connection through love, through visibility, through feeling worthy and loved, they will get, we will get that need met in a different way. We will get that need met on the other side, where we will feel like we can change and help and fix our parents. And when that happens, it's number one, we are then maybe very, very equal, but very close to our parents. We feel very much visible. Parents needs us. This is what we believe, that parents needs us. And we believe that if we will stay in the same pattern as our parents, so let's say generational trauma was never healed in your grandmother, your mother, and now there's you. And maybe in your family, it runs trauma of women not trusting that men will stay. Women don't trust that men come back. Women don't trust that men are trustworthy. So if this is the belief that was running in your family for generations, do you think you're going to have different belief if you want heal that? You will have the same belief. Subconsciously, as that little girl, you will still want to be like your mom. Mom, look, I'm loyal. Mom, look, I'm deserving of your love because I, just like you, the same, I feel like men are not trustworthy. I will choose subconsciously men that are not trustworthy. So I subconsciously want to feel like I'm close to you. But also I want to show you that I'm loyal. I'm close and I'm loyal. At the same time, if you had father that wasn't present, if you're going to choose men who are not really present either, this is how your inner child, this is how the part of you that is traumatized and has this belief about men that are not there, that you can't trust them, that they're not staying, that they're somewhere, they're not reliable, you will choose exactly those kind of men. Why? Because in every man like that, you will be looking for your own father. And then you will try to change and shift, maybe them, maybe yourself. You will try to find the answers you never got in your childhood. So this is more complex than we think it is. Generational trauma is huge when it comes to our beliefs, our limiting beliefs about everything. And let's be honest, there is loads of trauma still in collectiveness. There's still loads of trauma in society. We see it. We see it every single day in men and women. But the real question is, what do you want to do about it? What can you do today for yourself? You don't have to change the whole world. You don't have to change every single person right now. The only one person who really needs your attention and who really needs you to come back to themselves is you. You need to come back to you. Where else do we see generational trauma? It's very much visible in social expectations. There's loads of expectations we are, it's put on us. There's loads of social expectations that we women feel like we need to fulfill. It's also the same for men. Let's say, look at the men. Like, what is the belief that men should be? Or the men, they don't cry. There has to be the alpha male, when they just be very macho kind of attitude. If someone is less macho, they're not men. Like, there's loads of expectations like that. Look at women. We need to make ourselves desirable. Social expectations will show you how to be desirable. But what they will never tell you is what you should want. No, that's not for you. That's not for you to decide. What you want is really, the society really needs to put that onto you. They will tell you what you need to know. They will tell you what you need to need. But is that real? Is that authentic? No. Social expectations put us in this box, in this cage, and they tell you what's acceptable, what's not, what's appropriate, and what's not. But one thing you can't ever have is your own opinion. You can't never say what you think, truly think. Why? Because it doesn't fit in the box. You can't never say that you have a different opinion than somebody else. Because if you do, they will make you feel like there is something wrong with you for thinking like this. They won't allow you to think separately. They won't allow you to think for yourself. And we're talking about generational trauma. We're talking about trauma here. We know trauma creates loads of disconnection from ourselves, from society, from everyone, from our emotions. They tell you to be real. Ha, not really. Real in the cage, but not. And don't you ever dare step out of that cage, because then then there's a huge risk of being judged, not being liked, being rejected, being criticized. And if any of those things are your wound coming from your trauma, you will never come out of that cage. You will always be afraid of being yourself. You will always feel uncomfortable liking, owning yourself. You will never feel free if that is going to be the case. So, social expectations are a really real thing. And the more I started to talk about this, the more I started to look at generational trauma, the more I actually see it. I see it everywhere. Social expectations is actually so damaging to our own uniqueness. The minute you are somehow different, you won't be accepted. People will tell you, oh, we will accept you. Just be yourself. It's great. Deep down, you don't trust them. You know it's not the truth. Because everyone else, whoever is out there, famous or less famous, or doing something more, someone who has a little bit more, look at social media. They're being criticized. The hate that they experience from other people that they don't even met them, they don't even know them. It's huge. Where do you think this is coming from? This is based in fear. This is based on close-minded people who have loads of trauma inside them. Again, you don't have to change the world. All what you have to do is look inside you, connect with yourself. And no, you don't have to go out and speak your opinion to everyone. But this is where you learn to set boundaries. This is where you learn to be and to listen to yourself. If something is congruent with yourself, it's congruent with your own feelings, yes, you will do it. But when something is not aligned with what you want or what you feel, with your intuition, with your gut feeling, you won't do it. Because you won't have the need to meet people's expectations. You won't have the need to please them. All what you will look at is this is what I want? Is this is congruent with my own values? Where I am and who I am and what I want? Is this goes hand by hand, or is it maybe there is some kind of fear? We will talk about emotions in a little while, but just staying on the topic of social expectations. As women, we have a lot. We need to be the good girls. We can't speak too much about ourselves because no one wants to, feel like we're selfish. We can't be selfish. We constantly try to meet people's needs. We always try to read people's minds to see what's safe, what isn't. We constantly try to please others. We have men or women on pedestal. We try to be perfect in every single role that we have. And let's be honest, we have loads of roles. The basic ones will be a partner or mother, daughter, son. There's loads of roles that we have, and we have to fulfill all of them. But the question is, who are you in those roles? How comfortable are you being in those roles? Are you happy fulfilling those roles? And if not, what kind of social expectations are there? Why do we have to be perfect? Why do we believe we have to be perfect? That was one of my core beliefs. I believed I had to be perfect. And that was illusion, because let's be honest, no one can ever be perfect. That's not possible, because only when we are alive and as long as we are alive. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. And if as long as there is room for growth, we cannot be perfect, because perfection is the end. We can never reach the end while we're still alive. That would be actually a disaster if that was the case. But we try to be perfect because we are afraid to make mistakes. We are afraid that if we are going to make mistake, we will be judged. We are afraid that if we are not going to be perfect, it means automatically that we're not good enough. So it's either all or nothing. This is trauma-based thinking. All or nothing. I either am fully on or I'm nothing at all. We don't see the middle ground. We don't see that the different possibilities exist right in the middle. No, we either loved or are not loved. We either can be visible or we can't be visible at all. We either safe or we are unsafe. We either are successful or we complete failure. This is all or nothing trauma-based thinking. Maybe it's time that you come out of the cage and connect with yourself. Maybe it's time where you try to understand yourself a little bit more and stop thinking that all those behaviors are part of your personality. Those perfectionist, people pleasing, these are just coping mechanisms. These, in a way, are normal behaviors to abnormal realities, because that's how trauma works. So, based on trauma, based on social expectations, we are creating different types of limiting beliefs. And those beliefs are there to keep us in that cage, keep us safe. Not exactly mean free. It doesn't mean being visible. It means you're in survival every single day. You don't look at your needs, you just do what is expected from you to do. You don't look at what you want, because that's not allowed. You're not allowed to do or to want something. You just have to be there to fulfill somebody else's needs. We believe that we are not important. We believe our needs are not important. Desires? What are you on about? What kind of desires? This is another huge concept, because to feel desires, we really need to be connected with our body, because desires are felt in the body. If you're disconnected from your emotions, if you're disconnected from your own sensations in the body, you will never be even using the word desire. I want to desire something. I desire something. Desire is a very strong word, but comes from sensations. It comes from the body. Comes from emotions. If you're completely disconnected from your emotions, you will never even feel like you are desiring something. You might say, oh, I would like to, but you'll never say, I desire that. I did mention that with limiting beliefs, we also believe we can't say what we really think, because that's not safe. People will laugh at you. People will get angry at you. People will reject you, and you no longer will be likable. So that means you will be alone. And if you're alone, it means you will belong to nobody. One of your very first needs, to belong somewhere. It doesn't matter where, just somewhere. Even if it's hurting you, even if it's bad for you, we still want to belong somewhere. We want to feel like we are part of something. How about belonging to yourself first? My next question for you is, how many times are you able to say no? And how easy it is for you to say, no, it doesn't suit me. No, I don't like it. No, I won't do it. No, not this time. And Where are you saying yes? Yes, I will do it. Yes, no problem. Yes, it's not deep down, I feel like it's not convenient, but yes, I do it. I say nothing. I just keep going and just keep meeting people's expectations. This is what we really need to look at. Where do you say too much yes? And where do you say too much no? Because sometimes what really happens is where we really need to say yes, we say no. And where we really need to say no, we say yes. This is where we got mixed, because when we don't set boundaries, yeses and nos are somehow blur. We don't really understand. We disconnected from ourselves, we disconnected from our body. We don't know how to really react the way deep down we want to. So we do it based on what others want us to do, rather than based on what we really want. So ask yourself where there is too much yes and where in your life there is too much no. If you would start to put boundaries, if you would start to set boundaries for yourself, you would exactly know where to put the right yes and to where to put the right no. Because that would be that's part of setting boundaries. When we set boundaries, yeses are clear and no's are clear. We exactly know what is what because it's based on what we want. So this brings us exactly to the emotions. When there is so much trauma, there is so much uncomfortable emotions that we keep suppressing. And these emotions could be sadness, could be hurt, could be disgust, could be anger, could be emotions that makes us feel unsafe. Unsafe because there's a risk of people rejecting us based on how we feel. We are afraid to be afraid. We are afraid to feel sad. We are afraid to show sadness. Back to the belief that someone feels like they have to be perfect all the time. They would never allow themselves to feel sad, because sadness, vulnerabilities, it's part of weakness. What are you on about? What kind of sadness? I'm never sad. Anger? Maybe, but never sad. We will put the mask on that we will try to be the best version of ourselves. What is that? That is another mask that we put on ourselves. Because for really to really heal, we need to accept that we're not always going to be the best out of the best. Sometimes our best will be the bare minimum, going out of the bed and eat breakfast. That will be our best that day. We don't always have to be the best, or we don't always have to try to be the best version of ourselves. That's not the whole point. Yes, it's part of the growth, but to really connect with yourself, you really need to accept that yes, you are vulnerable. Sometimes you will feel weak. Sometimes you will feel sad. Sometimes even you might be or feeling depressed. Sometimes you might feel anxious. But rather than suppressing and rejecting and denying, pretending it's not there, it's like, okay, come on here. Like, okay, this is that's another part of me. Yes, I can be the best, but I can be the worst as well. So it's not about choosing what's more comfortable, what's more approachable, what's more acceptable, what's easier to accept. Because when we only going to choose, oh, I'm going to be the best version of myself all the time, constantly, without completely looking at the other side, this is ego based. This is nothing else but ego. True and real authentic self won't have the need to reject your weaknesses, because only then you can be full, only then you can feel whole. It's like the yin yang, light and dark. This is where we as humans really heal. Accepting that yes, the past wasn't great. Accepting that yes, people have hurt us in the past. Accepting that maybe we didn't feel loved, accepting that yes, people rejected us, but come back to ourselves and allowing ourselves to feel that we are not going to reject ourselves. That's true healing. Because what do you do when you reject the part of yourself that makes you feel weak? Oh, I'm never weak. I'm never one vulnerable. I don't actually do that stuff. No, thank you very much. How can you be whole? How can you be really authentic? You can't be unless you accept both the great stuff, things that keeps making you proud of yourself, but also things that are making you very little and vulnerable. Both are okay. This is where we look at shame, because part of trauma and part of unresolved trauma is not looking at shame, not looking at the guilt that we feel. And the more we don't look at the shame, the less free we will feel. Why? The shame will hold you back, because the shame will be your chain of not being who you really deserve to be. The shame will fulfill the fear. Shame will constantly making you feel like you have to be on edge, constantly defending yourself, constantly careful where someone can attack you. Shame, if you're not going to accept that you can be vulnerable, you constantly will be very defensive when someone will try to show you or mirror to you that you actually can be vulnerable and weak. But if you're not going to accept that aspect of yourself, you're feeding shame, and that itself is making you much weaker than you actually should be or can be. This is how we become our own worst enemy, not understanding our own emotions. What do we do when we feel sadness? Try to work out. We try to, maybe go for a run. Maybe we will eat 3 bars of chocolate. Maybe we will just pretend it's not there. Maybe we just keep busy and keep cleaning. If a child would come to you and tell you, Mom, Dad, I'm actually sad, will you tell them, here's the bar of chocolate, eat it and you will feel better, no problem? Would you tell them, oh, go work out and I promise you will feel so much better after it. You will forget about your sadness? Or would you actually sit with that child and ask them, why are you sad? What made you sad? What happened to you? Would you listen? So, what is the difference in here when it comes to yourself? Why do you not listening to yourself? What there is in you that you keep running away from yourself? The same with anger. Anger is an amazing emotion. I love working with anger because anger is one of the most powerful emotions, but it can be destructive if it's used in a wrong, not healed way. Anger can be very creative, it can build a lot, can build you up, can protect you from getting depressed. Anger is emotion that will try to protect you. But underneath anger has 3 pillars: fear, hurt, and frustration. The first 2 will never work out if you're going to try to pretend it's not there. Fear and hurt needs to be looked after. You need to sit with yourself. You need to listen inside you. You really need to come back to yourself and wrap yourself with love, with self-care, with understanding, with compassion, with realness. If there is frustration is a little bit different because there's way more energy than hurt and fear. Because it's easier to show anger than fear. It's easier to show anger than hurt. Again, it's a form of masking vulnerability. Frustration needs to be spoken about. Frustration needs to be expressed. But again, that frustration, if you're healed from the fear and hurt, you can use frustration in much more creative way. If it's not healed, then anger will turn into destructiveness. It will be very aggressive. Look at people in your generation. What kind of people they were? What did they show you? What kind of parents you had? What kind of grandparents you had? Were they healed or were they not? And the good news is that you don't need them to change. You don't need them to heal. You can do it. You don't ever need apology from someone to heal. You don't ever need anyone to acknowledge your pain other than yourself. That's the beauty of healing any trauma, because it's not about what they did to us. It's about how we reacted, how our body reacted to what happened to us. Part of the healing process is, as I keep saying, is come back to yourself, looking at yourself. Keep looking at your needs, connecting with yourself, connecting with your emotions, looking after your emotions. Learn how to regulate your emotions. So there's a lot of self in it. And often, the question I often hear from people healing from their traumas is, Sylvia, this all of it, it sounds great, but I don't want to become this selfish person. I don't want, to be full of myself and becoming arrogant and people then not to like me, or even myself not to like me. This is really, really good point. But people who are selfish and egocentric, these are the people whose hearts are very empty. They're not givers, they're takers. They will take your energy, they will take your beliefs, they will need you to act certain ways to please them. So they will manipulate you a lot. These people, yes, they are selfish, and this has nothing to do with healing. It has nothing to do with authentic self. People who are truly healed, people who are truly loving themselves, they have no need whatsoever to put others down. They don't need that because their ego is very healthy. Ego trusts themselves. They know how to look after their own ego. They know how to put it down, trim it if they need to, and overcome the ego. These people are healed when your heart is fulfilled with love, when your heart is fulfilled with good intentions, when you're willing to heal, when you're willing to change for yourself and maybe for your family, maybe for your kids, maybe for bigger good. That itself is starting to fulfill you with the goodness, with compassion. And you won't need to put people down. In your presence, people will start to feel like, oh my God, this is great. They want to give, they want to be in your presence. They would like to be around you because your vibe will be so loving. So it's not about becoming egocentric, selfish, and still empty inside. No, that is still wounded person. That is very poor person. But when it comes to people who are healing, who are doing something for themselves, you will feel so much better around them. And with people who are not healed, it's all about themselves and it's all about the ego. You will feel drained after being present with such a people. You will feel like, oh my God, thank God it's over. You will feel like you're so tired, you feel like you have no energy, you will feel like you feel so small and so not good enough. These are the people who are very wounded. And only wounded people wound others. Only wounded people bleed on others. Healed people, they don't need that. They shine the light and they always have a good intention. We have covered a lot for today, and I know there's a lot for you to think about, but that's amazing. I think that's really, really good for all of us. For us to start looking inside, to start connecting with ourselves without fear of being yourself. And I encourage you to be yourself. I encourage you to overcome the fear of being visible. Because let's be honest, there's always a part of us who wants to be loved, who wants to be successful, who wants to have good family, who wants to achieve things, who wants to have money, have good careers. There's one component that is the same for every single desire that we have. And that is, for all of this, for us to have, somehow we need to become visible. For you to meet your partner, you need to become visible. You need to become available. For you to have kids, to become a better parent, you need to become visible. For you to get promotion, get a better job, you need to become visible. Because even for applying for a job, you're putting yourself out there. You're becoming more visible. For you to have money, you need to find out different ways to earn more. So that is putting yourself out there more. So maybe your services, becoming, advertising your services, maybe that. But every single aspect for us to change and for us to want something more, we actually need to become more visible. So that is my wish for you, to becoming more visible, but in a much more healing, loving, compassionate way, more congruent with yourself. Be more approachable for yourself. Have a lovely day, everyone, and thank you very much for listening.